Okay, so I'm going to go in there with some sap green. And just kind of finish this out. Now I'm going to complete this and then go into some detail. I'm going to curve the lines. Still a little wet. It's a little strong, so I'm going to mellow it out some. And there was some yellow ochre. Adding some highlights. And I'm going to go into this little area here. While that tail dries some, I'm going to make some more of these little scoots, as another term, or protuberances. Just pulling out the color. Sometimes I add a color that's opposite, or what they call complementary colors. So I would do, since this has some green, I would do like red dots. And I try to explain to my students the color wheel and secondary colors and complementary colors, and I try to explain about nature. Nature is so far ahead of us. They've been doing that for billions of years. And I try to explain to them in terms that would make sense to them. So I talk about nature using complementary colors. I talk about plants. So a lot of the plants I use Christmas as a term, you know, a lot of red and green flowers are out there, and those two colors together make things more vibrant, and it attracts the insects for fertilization. So that's the way I would be doing this. Now I'm just kind of barely touching these. I'll come back in later and actually pull out more and make a highlight. I could even come back in to here and do the same thing. So I'm just pulling out the color. And you can see I'm getting lighter. as I come in. And I could go over them and bring out a little ring to make it pop more. So if I come in here with a little bit of darker brown, Van Dyke maybe, and I could just barely come around just a little bit. Just to emphasize the scoots. And you can see once I hit it with just that little dark, it even makes the little scoots kind of pop out a little bit more. So that's another technique. To enhance those. So I'm going to come back into the tail again. And start doing some more curvature. And now this is that technique I was talking about a while back, about having my hands shaky like I drank 20 cups of coffee. It's that randomness that makes things look more natural for some reason. So, but I'm still curving the line as I'm following this pattern. Now I'll probably come in with just a little hint of green on the bottom while it's still in the light stages. And that'll just be a light green. Just going to slowly blend it in. And I'll come back in there and pull up a highlight from the bottom later. And I can do it right now. And you can see by wiggling it and making that 20 cups of coffee technique, you'll see these little highlights pop out. And once they pop out, then I can go back in there and emphasize those highlights in a skin pattern. It's another ochre. as I'm going through this, I am looking for little cracks and crevices, just like what I would do for the rock formation. I'm still following the curvature because that will help later, but I'm also looking for little interesting shapes. Now I'm into the raw umbers. And you can see the randomness of my strokes. Now I'm just going a little darker on this lateral line, just so I can make a separation. And I'm not going to go all the way to the bottom. I'm going to leave this bottom part dark. And I could always come back in here later and even detail it more, kind of similar to this area right here. I'm going to let that dry and come back into this. We make this coarse shadow a little darker. And you can see it getting darker. That will help with a highlight down on the bottom. Still doing those little tiny random skin patterns. And if you look at that coarse shadow, it emphasizes that little highlight in there. And like I said, this is not painting with watercolors for everybody. This is mainly for the people that like doing the loose and finishing a painting in a few hours or half hour. This is for the people that would like to go a little further and add more detail. And again, I always mention, it's a different style than mine. And I do that loose painting also. These are there's times where I need to add details into something. I just can't do a loose painting for a museum project because they prefer more detail. Especially when it gets more of a scientific application to stuff. It's just a necessity. And dinosaur skin is kind of one of those things that there's a lot of detail to it. And it can't be done with one stroke. I'm going to emphasize this little area right here. I'm going to blend this out a bit. This is a little too overpowering for me. Blend some of that green, pull out some highlights. Come in here, blend. Now these blending little things, again, they're not for people that look at this painting. It's mainly for me. You know, if they wanted to see that stuff, they would bring a magnifying glass to see how the blending and little tiny lines are blending and popping out. I'm going to come in here and bring a little bit more of a highlight. You can see that popping out a little bit. You can see it's just a slow process. Now I'm going to bring a little bit of a highlight into this little area. It's a little too dark for me. You see I'm slowly building it out. Now I'll probably stop right about there. That will be a darker shadow in there. And sometimes I'm not sure if in the process of making the video, it cuts off sometimes parts that are in the camera, but it's kind of something that just gets cut off. I don't know why, but so I'm going to move that more to the center. And when I'm recording and I'm editing or doing whatever I can do, I'll look at it and it looks fine. But when I see it on YouTube, it's like they sliced off kind of large parts. I'm going to bring a little highlight in here. And I'm going to make a little bit of a core, well, not a core shadow, but a shadow right in here to emphasize the separation. Okay, I'm just looking for little things now. That's Cody crunching on her bone, in case you hear some background noises. I'm going around this to make it a little bit darker so the highlight will pop out a little bit more. Now I'm going to blow it up some so you can see. Maybe that's too much. You can see little highlights in here and some of the blending out and the little protuberances in this little area, kind of little highlights in here. I'm going to pull it back over here because this is not finished. Too strong. Again, I hate the hyperloop, so I'm not going to ever do that again. And I'm using a 3/0. And as I'm looking at this, I'm also kind of looking for things that pop out for me. So I'm going to come into here, make a little bit more of a separation. Come into here, more of a separation. And you can see there's little highlights in here and separation down there. A little bit of a green tint coming down. And I'm gonna slowly fade it to light in this direction, so I'm not gonna go all the way down. But I will add some more detail as I'm doing the transition. And there's some nice little things in here, little highlights, some light little scaling in there, and that works for me. It doesn't have to just be all the same all the way down. Okay, so I might just come in here and just add a couple of highlights in here. Again, these are things that only affect me. I really don't expect anybody to look at my work. Oh yeah, bring a magnifying glass. Okay, so right there. It's a little harsh right there. like I said, I just kind of look for little things that matter to me. I'm going to bring a little couple of highlights in here. It's almost a dry brush, just very lightly damp. And you can see just that little bit of a highlight just kind of help with the illusion of roundness. Okay, well, I'm going to call it a day, and I'm going to kind of give another little look-see. I'm going to probably blend out that green in here and bring some more highlights in here, and maybe work on lighter here so the chest will pop out even more. This is probably an excellent way to see things magnified. So when I'm looking at under magnification, or like under a magnifying glass, I could really see little things that are popping out for me. Let me bring a little bit more of a little bit of highlight in there. It's a little too dull for me. Anyway, so that's kind of the 90% Iguanadon.